Hello. Welcome back. Welcome to a new video. How are you? I'm doing great. Back in the US. No, back in Korea. I just came back from the US. I will have vlogs linked down below. Went to the East Coast, went to the West Coast, saw My Chemical Romance, saw my best friend's new corgi puppy, whichever entices you to watch the vlogs. There you go. Yes, I am back. It has been, why does it feel like it's been longer? I've been home for maybe 5 days. Within those 5 days, I binged a bunch of cowboy romances for ya, which somehow ended up including aliens. So I have a video coming out next week for you so that I can hunker down. I might go offline for a little bit because I'm going to be, they are not near me. I'm going to be hanging up some photos. It's time. It is time. Okay? Buckle up. End of September, we're hoping. We've got an interesting list. For what I read in August. Obviously, I was traveling. I thought I was going to be reading a lot of romances because I was on many long flights. But guys, I have gotten such control over my flight anxiety that I've been sleeping. Bose noise-canceling headphones changed my life, changed my reading. Unfortunately, can no longer do 3 books on one flight. But yeah, so less romance, but weirdly a lot of Beauty and the Beast retellings. Just a weird mix of things. Some disappointments, some highly anticipated reads, some disappointments. Before we dive in though, speaking of highly anticipated reads, oh my god. The sponsor of this video, which needs no introduction, Book of the Month. Book of the Month. As you know, monthly subscription service. Book of the Month has a team of readers that comb through all of the new releases across genres. They pick their favorites and you can get a hardcover copy for one low controlled price. Easy to cancel your membership. Always really interesting picks. You can choose 1 to 2 books. You can add on. You can get, it's amazing. So before I get into my picks, you can use my code JACKET to get your first book, hardcover new release, for $5 and a fun little hat. I already have one of their hats, but this one, can you see? Well read. Oh yeah. Bookish hat of your choice. So Book of the Month, thank you so much. All that information will be down below. What did I choose? Which one should I show you first? Because these are 2 of my most anticipated reads of the rest of the year. I'll show you this one. I got Alchemy of Secrets, Stephanie Garber's new, I didn't even see. Stephanie Garber's first adult fantasy. There's a professor that is teaching local legends and urban myths. Most students believe the professor's stories are just fiction, but Holland St. James has always been convinced that magic is real. When she tracks down a local legend named the Watchman, who can supposedly tell you when you'll die, the world finally makes sense. Except that the Watchman tells her she will die at midnight tomorrow unless she finds an ancient object called the alchemical heart. It's Los Angeles. It's night school. I'm just so interested. I feel like, to me, Stephanie Garber is so, like, and I mean this affectionately, like, so youthful that even her, like, upper young adult work reads just like juvenile in the best way, you know? So I'm just so interested to see how she'll approach an adult book. So I got the Alchemy of Secrets, and then my next one, yes, I did get it. Wild Reverence, Rebecca Ross. Apparently this is a prequel to Divine Rivals. Oh my gosh, there's fate and people meeting in dreams. Oh no. This is gonna hurt. This book is gonna hurt. The dedication is for anyone who has had to let go of someone they love. Oh dear. Okay. I can't. Very excited for this. So once again, Book of the Month, thank you so much. You can use my code JACKET to get your first book for $5, and then you can also pick a cool hat. Yeah. That being said, got things to look forward to. What did I read previously? Before I started filming, I actually went and read back through my list so that I could jog my own memory. But I remember what I read, actually, surprisingly. So I started off with a book that was recommended in my comments by quite a few of you. And when I went to look for it, it had this kind of, it felt like it was maybe a kind of cult classic. The way that people talked about it, it was like, I've never read anything like this. This was life-changing. I'll never forget this book, etc. So I was kind of going into it purposely knowing as little as possible, but knowing that people loved this book, right? Put it on the highest of shelves. And, you know, sometimes a book is just a book. And that's okay. In this case, this book, to me, was just a book. And that is The Beast of 10. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. If Beauty was alone in the Beast's castle for like 60% of this book. I forget exactly how this ends up happening, but our main character is Beauty and the Beast style, taken to this castle. The beast of the household is this young man, but he's likely immortal, right? Looks can be deceiving. So we don't know anything about this guy other than the fact that he is clearly doing something with magic to corrupt his own soul. So I think the Beast of 10, it has something to do, the magic system has something to do with like, you have these like magical bonds within you. This is me going off of really faulty memory, I'm sorry. If you do enough dark magic, you can like snap those bonds, and I believe he's trying to snap all 10 of these bonds. And then once that's gone, like your soul is corrupted to the point of no return, right? And then I believe our main character is not officially, but like homeschooled a healer that specializes in helping connect these bonds. So a lot of the book is just the beast being either gone or being hidden away in his room, and we just have our main character like trying to figure out what's going on without ever having any kind of interaction with the beast. There are like nice characters who live on the grounds, like a housekeeper, a gardener, a guardsman, whatever. But it was just moving really, really, really slowly. And I feel like because we waited so long to figure out why the beast was doing this to himself, like why would you corrupt your own soul, that by the time we got the kind of explanation as to why he's doing this, didn't match the kind of buildup. Like maybe that's the point, but it felt like such not inconsequential, but like something that I feel like he didn't need to go down such a crazy road, this like catalyst of his demise. I will say it ended in a way that I didn't expect it to, which was refreshing, at least. Did I like it? No, but it was a different ending. But they could have carved off 200 pages. There's literally, in my notes I actually wrote it, 100 plus pages dedicated to them lighting candles in the castle, because it's something about like you need light to fight darkness, and so they just light these magical candles throughout the whole house, but they do it like every night. And so there's just hundreds of pages of like, did you light all the candles in the bedroom? Did you light all the candles? It was just a lot. I also wrote that all of the scenes were really short, so the book felt even longer than it was because so much happened, but only over the course of like a couple pages for each scene, other than the fucking lighting the candles scene. So yeah, I think if you're looking for a if Beauty and the Beast retellings are your bread and butter, you can give this one a try, but it was really lacking of beast. And then once we had scenes with the beast, we just didn't understand him as a character. Again, even when we got to the explanation of him at the end, I still was like, I would like to know more about this. Less about the candles, more about this, right? Yeah, so I would only read it if you are like ride or die, you need to read every Beauty and the Beast retelling known to man. And if you do, I've got good news, because that wasn't my only one this month. But yeah, that was Beast of 10. After that, I promise this isn't going to be a month of complaining, but after that, I think this author isn't for me, because this is strike number 2. I read Not Quite Dead Yet. And I did read, what is it? Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I did read that. Didn't really like it, but I thought perhaps this is her first. Is it her first? Well, it's an adult thriller. Thought I'd give it a try, and the idea was there, but I feel like this is a book where the author had the ending in mind and then wrote the story. This is about our main character, who is not quite dead yet. She was attacked in her home. She wakes up in a hospital room and is told that she essentially has a blood clot that will turn into, or already is, she's going to have an aneurysm any day now. They're estimating, I think they gave her a week. So she could either choose to live and die in a week, or she could immediately have brain surgery where she has like a 1% chance of living. And the doctor is kind of telling her this, like, please don't choose the surgery. Like, I don't want you to die on my table. And she's like, yeah, actually, I don't want to die on your table either. And I also want to find out who fucking did this to me. So she uses that week to investigate, figure out what's going on. Really interesting, right? We've got someone who is a ticking time bomb. All she wants to do, she's like, I've got 7 days. Some people go skydiving. Some people spend time with their loved ones. Hell no. I'm finding out who did this to me. We love that for her. We love that for her. It was so predictable, first of all. And second of all, I didn't like any of the characters. I actually thought she introduces her like best friend. What's his name? Bobby? Billy? Her best friend, Billy. I thought he was a 12-year-old boy until we show up at his house. And I'm like, wow, this 12-year-old boy lives alone? What is this town? Yeah, so the characters, especially like our main character and Billy, I felt like they were really young, or like I couldn't age them. They didn't feel like they're supposed to be like in their mid-30s or something. No, Billy absolutely felt like a 12-year-old which got weird the further you read in the book. But the characters also felt kind of like caricatures. Like she had a kind of toxic mom, and her mom never got not talk. Like that would have been really interesting for her to spend the last bit of her time on Earth trying to work on that mother-daughter relationship, and they just didn't. Like I felt like there were so many more interesting things that she could have done with her time than try to solve this murder. I felt like the ending also just low-key felt like Good Girl's Guide to Murder 2.0. I wasn't thrilled. Like it was a thriller. I wasn't thrilled at any point. I just think perhaps this author isn't for me, because I saw other people enjoy it. So if you liked A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I think you would like Not Quite Dead Yet. I also her author's note irked me. Like at the very end, before her acknowledgements, she had an author's note. So it's like you finish the book, you're on the last page, you turn it and you see the author's note. And the way that her author's note started, it felt like she wanted to hold our hands. She's like, I know that book was devastating, wasn't it? Like, take a breath. I'm sorry that I did that to you. And it's like, you didn't do anything to me. So I don't know. It was, yeah, I just was irked. I was irked by that book. Okay. Not Quite Dead Yet. But now we get to the good stuff. I have a book that is coming out this month, September 23rd, 2025. Who was this by? Shoot, hold on. Sorry. Oh, right. Okay. So this is by the author of My Throat, an Open Grave, which is this kind of Appalachian, is it a fantasy? Let's say magical realism. It's all about like this kind of culty, weird off branch of Christianity in this, like I said, Appalachian small town, sacrificing virgins, sacrificing sinners, basically sacrificing young women. I really liked that book. So when I saw that she was going to be writing fantasy, and especially with the cover like this, I was very excited. So I got an arc. I read the second death of Locke. This was good. I feel like I was just having a shitty time, and then this book came and it was like, thank you. This is what I asked for. I did make a TikTok about it, or like a reel right after I finished reading it. And I feel like when I do that, I tend to kind of oversell the book. So this isn't going to be on my list of all-time favorite books of 2025, but it's still really good. So I still stand by the fact that of all of the fantasies that have been highly anticipated and let me down this year, this is not one of them. So The second death of Locke. The magic system in this world is some people are born as mages, which means that they can perform magic. But then there are people who are called wells, and they are like the source of power that mages can feed from. So a mage has like some innate power, but they don't have quite enough to be doing anything substantial. And so our two main characters have been best friends since they were children. One is a mage, one is a well, and they are like pretty much everyone of their age in the military, and they work so well together that they're pretty high ranked at this point. And they are given a task that they don't want to touch with a 12-foot pole, but you don't say no in the military. So what is this task? They have to rescue/kidnap a prisoner that another kingdom has taken. So get this prisoner back and bring them to their king, their lord, whatever, the head of their kingdom. Why is this prisoner so important? It is believed that this little girl is the final heir to a kingdom that went missing and is the source of all magic. So there's like 6 or something kingdoms. One of the kingdoms, called Locke, was the source of all magic, and the island just went missing one day, the whole family with it. And the only reason that they know that there is an heir surviving is because the magic hasn't died. But if the heir dies, that final person, magic will be erased from the world. Obviously, protecting that person is very important, but what if that person maybe isn't who they're looking for? And what if the person that they're looking for is hiding in plain sight? You see how this might get complicated? The beginning was a little bit bumpy, like that whole setup was quite bumpy, but I loved the relationship so much, and I liked all the side characters. It's one of those stories where, you know, as they're going on this quest to deliver this girl, they need to create a little posse. And I loved all of the side characters. It does have a pretty big tonal shift halfway through. Like, I definitely think the beginning and middle were much stronger than the end. I was so invested in the relationship at this point that I was just ready to like ride it till the end. But I liked it. If you like the ambiance, I'm just really a sucker for magic that involves two people and this kind of give and take, and the amount of trust that you need for a relationship like that. Yeah, I did really like it. If you enjoy kind of magic and knights, islands that go missing, every character is super self-sacrificing, and you're like, well, we can't all die, so somebody's gotta have some self-preservation perhaps. But anyway, I personally really enjoyed it. So that was the second death of Locke. After that, I was back on my Beauty and the Beast retelling roll. And this, let me look. Yeah, I'll say it. This was my favorite fantasy. Maybe not my favorite book, but my favorite fantasy of the month. This one, I will read anything that this author writes. She gets me. She just speaks directly into my brain, and it just feels really great. And that is Elizabeth Lim, who wrote A Forgery of Fate. This is the author of 6 Crimson Cranes, for example. She just does fairy tale retellings in this like magical, usually like Chinese mythology inspired world. She writes dragons so well. So if you're a dragon girl, but specifically in her retellings, dragons, instead of air creatures, they are water creatures. So in 6 Crimson Cranes and in this book as well, we are dealing with the underwater dragon realm. Okay, so yes, A Forgery of Fate. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. We are dealing with a girl who has a very mysterious past, and for reasons that will unfold, she has become a forger. So she is an incredible artist, and she has a keen eye for detail. She forges paintings and sells them on the black market, and that is how she kind of keeps her family together. And of course, when you're dealing with the black market and forgeries, you're also kind of running alongside crime lords, and so she is in a lot of trouble. Let's just say she's in a desperate situation when she accidentally finds herself face to face with one of the lords or princes that lives up on the like very rich side of the city, up on the hill. When he learns about her skills, he decides to strike a bargain with her that her family can come live in his palace or, you know, manor and be protected behind his big scary walls as long as our main character not only lends her services as a forger, but also that she forges something else. A wedding contract. That's right, she has to get fake married to this guy to get his grandpa off his back. We get a whole story, okay? But yeah, there is a marriage of convenience, dragons, and art. And I just really liked it. There also were like kind of tie-ins to Six Crimson Cranes and A Dragon's Promise, I think is the second one. So it's tiny. You don't need to have read those prior, but like if you have, there are some dragons that you might recognize. I really liked it. It was just really good. I love how she constructs, especially the underwater world. I think that she does it really well. And also if you liked The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, I feel like we don't get a lot of fantasies that take place underwater, and there's something about that immediately makes everything 10 times more magical and strange. Yeah, I really liked it. I wrote that I actually almost wish there was more romance. Like, I felt that their dynamic was so lovely, but this really was much more kind of action heavy, really just focused on our main character and her growth and her skills. And so I the only thing that would have made it better is just like more time with the couple. But yeah, this was really, really good. So absolutely my favorite fantasy of the month. Once again, Elizabeth Lim. That is A Forgery of Fate. Oh, okay, pause. I do have the physical, and it's actually important that you see the physical copy of my next book. So hold on. Oops. Okay, so next up, the reason why I need to show you the physical copy of House of the Beast is because this is written by Michelle Wong, who is the graphic novel illustrator for The Legend of Korra. So regardless of what this book is about, I'll just show you. Here's like a chapter header. You see? It's illustrated just a little, you see. Anyway, so that's why I wanted to show you. Yes, this is House of the Beast. I got an ARC, but I believe it's out now. It should be already out. I think it came out in August. Oh, it came out in August. Okay, so we are dealing with a girl who lives alone with her mother in this seaside town. They're a little bit shunned because like a single mom in this society is deemed as a failure. There's rumors swirling about her father, things like that. But they're living a very, very happy life until her mother gets very sick. It ends up going into it at the very, very end, which I kind of wish it had been this concept had been introduced quite a bit earlier. But basically, the society that they live in is very religious, and they don't believe in modern medicine. They don't like modern medicine. They believe that you should just pray to the gods. And so when her mother gets very, very sick, our main girl panics and calls for help. And that help comes in the form of her real father, who turns out is actually a member of this family that is one of the vessels of one of the gods. And I believe it is the god of death that they are vessels for. And when her father's son, so our main character's half-brother, doesn't turn out to be a very good heir to this death god throne, he needs somebody else. That is when he comes to collect his daughter. And he's like, if you come with me, if you train, if you become a member of this family, I will take care of your mother. And they're very wealthy. We're gonna, spare no expense. Your mother will be cured. So off she trots to this weird ass family. We get a lot of time jumps because she, I think, starts when she's like 8 years old. And then I think she's in her 20s by the end of this book. And by the time we get to kind of the middle of the book, she has gone through the whole arc of like, oh wow, this is really exciting that I'm part of a new family. I hope that everybody loves me, to, oh my God, I fucking hate this family. I'm gonna destroy them. Very quick turnaround. So when there is an opportunity to enter into these trials to, gain political influence, something that her daddy really, really wants, she decides to enter and win it herself. And all this time, by the way, since page 1, she has had this imaginary friend who is along for the ride the whole time. So, Here are my notes. I liked it at first, but felt it lost steam and dragged by 50%. There were trials, so action, right? Like we got action scenes, interesting things. And then after the trials, we had this waiting period, and even the trials themselves were really confusing. And then how I mentioned in the beginning, how there is this whole idea of like religion and shunning modernity and things like that. That concept is brought back in at maybe the 75% point, and it's actually really fascinating. So the world, it suddenly makes the world feel huge, right? We're dealing with like what I felt like was the whole world, and then with this mention of a new concept, explode. The world is so much bigger than we imagine, and then the book kind of ends. It just kind of felt like this book wasn't really finished. It didn't end at any satisfying point. I really liked the idea, but overall I felt like it wanted to do just so many things, and I think if it had picked one or two, even if it didn't have the trials and she just found any other way to destroy her family from within, I think that would have given us more time to talk about the really interesting things that end up getting exposed near the end. An unfortunate miss for me, House of the Beast just tried to do a little too much. A little too much. And then I was preparing to get on my airplane. So as we know, I have a lot of pre-trip jitters. So my mind was just not going to be able to focus on anything longer than this little guy. So yeah, I got my hands on Until August. This is by Gabriel García Márquez. And this is a little controversial because I guess as he was getting older, he was struggling with his memory, his ability to write, and it was something that really frustrated him. And so when he kind of attempted to write his last novel or short story, he didn't want it published. He was like, it's not good. Nothing I write is good anymore. He was very frustrated. And his sons found it and were like, you know what? I think he's wrong. I think he still has it in him. I think this is still worthy of publishing. And so there's a long author's note in the beginning about why they chose this, and they hope that, how did they word it? They said, in an act of betrayal, we decided to put his reader's pleasure ahead of all other considerations. If they are delighted, it's possible Gabo might forgive us. In that we trust. So it's something that's kind of talked about, especially this year. There's been quite a few books that have come out that kind of beg the question of how do you respect an artist's work after they have passed. This was fine. This was not, this wasn't going to be one of his classics. I still actually really enjoyed it. It's very short. It's maybe like 120 pages. It's about a woman who makes a trip every August to this kind of remote island where her mother asked to be buried. And so every August she goes, lays some flowers on her mother's grave. She stays at the same hotel every time, uses the same florist, uses the same taxi driver. Like, she's in and she's out. We follow her through many, many years of this August, and what happens when she starts to become a little dissatisfied with her marriage, what happens when she, in an act very unlike her, maybe has a one-night stand. Things just kind of fall apart, and her world is kind of constantly circling around this like 1 week period in August. I actually really liked it. I thought that it was a great book to read in August, just like this kind of slow cyclical summer book, kind of a Groundhog's Day situation. I would love to see this as a short film. Actually, I could visually, came in very clear through my mind, so I could see everything that was happening. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. So if that makes the ghost of Garbo as they call him, if that makes him feel any better, I enjoyed it. So that is Until August. Just a quick little read, Until August. Next up, I mentioned I had highly anticipated books that were disappointments. This was how do I even start this? This is a fantasy. This is a debut based on these like tiny snippets. It was like a window that had a curtain blowing in the breeze. And so I could see just like moments of what was through the window, right? Brilliance. So I know that this writer has it in her to write a great story. It just was not this one. you know? So I will be reading the next work by this author, but not this was such a letdown. I read Immortal Consequences. This should have been everything to me. It is a boarding school academy setting, but it is in limbo in the afterlife. The students are charged with studying and competing in trials that if they win, they can choose to either live forever as like a professor slash not police officer could live forever in the academy, or go on to the great beyond that nobody knows. Nobody knows what's in the great beyond. And if you stay, you are supposed to fight off the dark spirits and things like that to keep the balance of the afterlife. So we're dealing with a bunch of kids who have been dead for, some of them, hundreds of years. It does not feel like this. That is my main complaint. We're dealing with kids who are all teenagers. I think they're all supposed to be the same age. I think they're all like maybe 17. Like I said, some of them have been here for hundreds of years. Some have been here for like a couple months. And they're just like studying to take this test and participate in the trials, and only one person wins the trials each year. And the longer you're there, the more that you forget your life and just kind of become a shell of yourself. This was such a letdown because it's such a cool concept, but none of it felt believable. Like, why are these kids who have been in school for hundreds of years still struggling to pass their classes? First of all, I'm like, just give up. Get a tutor. Like, what's going on? Second of all, the bad guys immediately felt like the bad guys. There was no mystery element to it, really. Third, there were so many POVs, and the POVs switched so much that I felt like I never got to sink in and understand any one character. We follow mainly 6 main characters. Of course, they are all couples, okay? One of them in particular was so annoying. That I just hated, even if it wasn't her POV. If she was just in the scene, I hated it. My battery's dying. It's her. It's the ghost of that one character haunting me. So yeah, it was just so choppy. The world was actually really complex. Like, you've got so many layers, like everybody's dead, but then you've got the spirits that start to forget themselves, but then there's also the dark spirits, but then you can opt to join the dark spirits, but then there's the like heaven, but then there's the you can stay in limbo forever as protector of limbo. There was just a lot going on that I felt like wasn't explained well. But as I mentioned, with that whole like curtain that is blowing in the wind and you can just see these moments of such brilliance, there were some scenes, particularly one of the couples had these moments that were like, I should be reeling. If I had any emotional attachment to those characters, I knew that my heart would have been ripped out. Like, there were some lines that were said. Once again, I'm a sucker for self-sacrificing, so like there were just some things that this one character did in the name of love. If I had had more time understanding, like if you were the only 2 main characters and we only had 2 POVs and I actually understood your dynamic, I would be dead right now. Like, that's why I'm saying this author has it in her to write devastating romance, but it was just bogged down by so much going on. It was a real bummer, but again, moments of absolute brilliance, which made it really frustrating because I was like, damn, of just a slight miss. Okay, so that is Immortal Consequences. Okay, next up, real quick, I did in fact read a romance on the airplane, as usual, but yeah, only one. Isn't that crazy? I read Love is a War Song. This, short, sweet, simple, it was a romance. If you like Hannah Montana, it had, and I mean this in the best way possible, it had the feeling of a Disney Channel original movie. It is about a pop star who is getting her big break until she is wrapped up in a big scandal and is essentially canceled because her mother is Native American from, I believe it's the Muskogee tribe in Oklahoma, but her mom is completely estranged from her family. We don't know why, but she packed up and left home. They have not been in contact since basically our main character was born. So she understands that she is Native American. That's all she knows. right? She is not connected at all to her tribe, but her record label is like, well, we're going to use this to set you apart, right? So her scandal is essentially she has not only a music video, but a Rolling Stone cover in which she is just in a headdress, like very not a good look. Not a good look. Not politically correct in any way, shape, or form. In order to kind of hide from the press, and also it is sort of a PR move to make her look good, her mom decides to send her to go live with her tribe in Oklahoma. She sends her to live with her grandma. And while she's there, of course, she has to deal with the ranch hands, the cowboys that live on her grandma's farm, and maybe she discovers quite a bit about herself. Yeah, I thought it was good. No notes. Like, really thought it was fine. A lot of talk about identity, a lot of talk about people getting offended on behalf of other people who aren't offended. If a certain community has a way of defining who is a part of their community, and then other people who aren't even a part of the community are like, you don't belong, kind of thing. Yeah, I thought it was timely and well done, and just a good summer read. That Is Love is a War Song. Read it in one sitting over the Pacific Ocean. So, oh, but I will say this is a book that it's contemporary. So there are references to contemporary figures, which it's just like a personal ick of mine. So like Elon Musk is name dropped in a bad way, okay? But like he's in there, Taylor Swift's in there, Carrie Underwood's in there. There's just like Britney Spears, obviously, like we're talking about pop stars. So that, you know, I don't love that, but that was really my only critique. So Love is a War Song. And then I was in the US, I was with my family, I was with my friends, I wasn't reading until the tail end of my trip and my flight from Philadelphia to San Diego. I read, finally, The Great Mann. I've mentioned this before. I've had it on my TBR. I've been waiting for it to come out. Finally got it from the library. This was maybe my favorite book of the month. Yeah, it's honestly between this and A Forgery of Fate. The Great Mann is a Great Gatsby retelling, except it takes place in Los Angeles in the 1940s into the 50s, post World War II, LA. Specifically in the neighborhood that is called Sugar Hill, which is like the Black Beverly Hills. So we follow our main character who's from somewhere back east. He came back from the war and was like, listen, I need a change. I need a change in scenery. I need a job, you know? So he takes a train out to live with his cousin in Los Angeles. She picks him up from the station in this really nice car. And as they're driving, he's like, no, this can't be right. No, this can't be right, because as they're driving through, you know, Hollywood Hills, and it's just like mansion after mansion after mansion, he's like, I'm sorry, no, this is not how we live. But sure enough, he's introduced to this Sugar Hill, which is a growing community of very wealthy Black folks that are buying up all of these mansions that have been kind of either abandoned, either because of the war or the Great Depression or something. They're here now. They're going to clean up the neighborhood. And of course, he's staying at a boarding house, and his roommates invite him to this massive party. There's a party every week at this house, the house of James Mann, who is, of course, our Gatsby. This was such a cool retelling because while it hit a lot of the same beats as The Great Gatsby, obviously we have a Gatsby, we have a Daisy character. Our main character is, why does his name escape me? Our narrator of The Great Gatsby. There's also just a lot of really interesting historical facts thrown in terms of especially surrounding housing law and home ownership in the late 40s. Oh shoot, now I've forgotten the name. But there used to be in like the deed of a house, if you're selling it, part of the kind of fine print on that contract, you would have race written in where like this house cannot be sold to anyone of this race, basically not white. And so a lot of the book is actually them organizing and fighting to maintain their homes. I thought that part was actually a lot more fascinating than Gatsby. I felt like the Gatsby character himself was not as interesting as, maybe because I already knew the beats of the story, I was more interested in the stuff that was new. But yeah, I really liked it. The setting of LA in the 40s, really, really enjoyed. So that is The Great Man. If you like The Great Gatsby, I think you'd like this. Also, the author's note was fascinating because the author said that this retelling has sort of been stirring in her mind for decades, because as much as she hates F. Scott Fitzgerald as a person, she loves his art. And so she loves The Great Gatsby, but she said that she's been haunted by, there is a scene, and you know, I read The Great Gatsby in high school. I haven't memorized it, so I didn't remember this scene, but apparently there is, close to the end of the book, there is a split second where our characters see a limousine driven by a white driver, and there are 3 wealthy young Black people being driven in it. And one of the characters, Daisy's husband probably, makes a comment like, you know, there goes the neighborhood, or something. And those were the only Black characters in The Great Gatsby. They are on screen, on page for about 2 seconds, not given names, but she just thought this idea of, you know, in that time period, who were these really wealthy young Black people being driven in a limo by a white driver? And she just could not get that out of her brain. And so she wrote this Great Gatsby retelling with a young, wealthy Black Gatsby. And I really, really liked it. Worth a very long wait at the library. That is The Great Man. Okay, we're not done with the disappointments. I'm going to preface this by saying I read this book partially on the airplane, just a little bit of it. And then I finished it while I was in a kind of jet-lagged dream state the day or so after I came home to Korea. So brain not firing on all cylinders, right? Some of this could be my fault. Okay, but I read The Incandescents. So the first, did I write down 40%? Okay, the first 40% of this book, I was already writing down notes to tell you that if you were disappointed by catabasis, that you should read The Incandescents, because it did what I wanted catabasis to do in the first 40%, and then it fell apart. Okay, so The Incandescents takes place at a magical school, and our main character is actually the professor. And I did really love that about this book, just like throughout, talking about how difficult it is to be a teacher, or she was sort of like a catch-all. She taught some classes, but she was also not the headmaster, but basically the administrator that kept the entire school running. So I liked that, how she would talk about just how difficult being a teacher is, and kind of the politics of, you know, everything else that has to go into a school that isn't just teaching. So I thought that was really refreshing. I really liked that. And she teaches this advanced class where they are learning how to summon demons. You obviously shouldn't summon demons, but if you had to, she wants to teach you in, you know, a proper safe setting. But what if that safe setting isn't safe enough, because some of her kids are a lot more powerful than they realize, and accidents happen. What happens when we awaken a pretty big demon? Okay, I think my issue with this book was that I misunderstood kind of what the climax was going to be. I feel like because I've read I read so much fantasy, I feel like I typically have a sense of like, oh, this is what we're building towards, and that's gonna be the showdown. Right? I kind of immediately got a sense of like, oh, okay, so this is gonna be the big incident that we are building up to. But what I thought was going to be kind of the climax of the book ended up happening within the first 30%, and was kind of, we're done with that. Put it aside. Pack up so many of the characters I loved and was excited to read more about, and then the story kind of splinters off from there. So I was just a little confused in terms of how I thought the plot was gonna be laid out. There is an element of romance. We have our main character who's like the teacher, whatever, and then we have the head of like campus security, for lack of a better word, and they immediately don't like each other because they have different philosophies regarding demons and magic, but of course they fall in love. And it's more of like awkward adult love where they are trying to go on a first date, but like their schedules just don't match up. Like they have to talk about their work schedules in order to like even go out for a drink. So it was this like bumbling, cute love. But unfortunately, like I said, the story kind of splinters. The characters I was interested in are no longer on the page. I didn't like the introduction of the new characters. What did my notes say? Yeah, I basically just said I was kind of bored. I just so desperately wanted my characters that I liked back, and I wanted the new characters gone. That unfortunately I really didn't like it, so I think I loved the first half, mainly the first 40%, and then it let me down. So let me know though, because I could feel as I was reading it, I could feel my attention kind of drifting, partially because of my sleep schedule or lack thereof. Editing Carrie here. I didn't specify what I loved so much about the beginning that really reminded me of Catabasis, or what I wanted from Catabasis. And we're actually like in the classroom. We're in her classroom and there's this long discussion. We're in her classroom and then she's auditing a class. Not that it matters. Long discussions of kind of the philosophy behind demon summoning and magic. Like that's what I wanted from Catabasis, was if you're gonna do these weird like branch offs into philosophy and logic, make it make sense to the plot. Don't just make it a weird tangent that is a tangent for tangent's sake. I really liked how they incorporated these philosophical discussions of like, what is a soul? What is a person? Because they're talking about like consent and consenting to magic being done to you and stuff like that. I loved that. I also felt like the writing style was almost Olivia Blake-ish. Like it was kind of talking to itself and it had like almost one too many details, but it was perfect. I don't think I expressed it strongly enough, but I really loved the first 40%. That's why I think I was so let down by the rest, you know? Okay, bye. So let me know if I should give it another try. Did you enjoy the last 60%? Did anyone else have a similar feeling to me? Because I really wanted to like it. I really did. But that's the Incandescent. But after that, I wanted something easy, cute, cozy, because again, I wasn't ready for anything challenging at that point. And a friend of mine had recommended a book that happened to also just come into the library. I'd been waiting for it for a while. And that is House of Frank. House of Frank. This was cute, cozy, devastatingly sad, and just what I wanted. So if you enjoyed the work of like a TJ Klune, for example, this was very reminiscent of, it was kind of a more adult grief house on the Cerulean Sea. So we're dealing with our main character whose sister, I believe twin sister, passed away, and her sister's final wish was that she be cremated and buried in this one arboretum, where you, instead of being buried, you are planted, and using magic, your ashes will become a tree in this beautiful arboretum so that, you know, your family can come visit your tree. It took her a long time. It took her a couple years to get the balls to even come to the arboretum. But when our main character finally gets there, she is greeted by the owner of the house, Frank, and she immediately backs out. She's like, never mind, I'm not ready to let go. I'm sorry, I gotta go. But as fate would have it, there is a big storm, so she can't leave. She's invited to stay, and Frank is basically like, listen, stay here as long as you want. We've got rooms. All I ask is that you do some work around the house, but like whenever you're ready, no rush. We can plant your sister anytime. So hang out. And so we just follow her as she like remembers why life is worth living, I guess. We've got our like cast of characters, all the people who live in the house for various reasons. And yeah, it's just kind of about overcoming grief and how, you know, it's so easy to help others, very difficult to help yourself. How grief comes in all shapes and sizes, hits you in different ways, can make you do really crazy things, very out of character things. It was just really comforting. So I think for me, this was a good time to read this book because I dealt with a pretty significant loss of a friend last year, and I feel like just now, a year and some change later, I feel like I'm capable of like thinking about grief, I don't know, in like an okay way. I you know, grief is so difficult to talk about, so it's hard to explain, but like I wouldn't have been able to read this a couple months ago, but I can read it now. So yeah, I think like gauge where you're at. If you're dealing with any kind of loss, think about it. But this was, I thought, done in such like a comforting, cozy way. It wasn't like overly preachy either. It was quite realistic. And at times I even forgot that they were dealing with grief. And I think that's kind of the point, is life is so much bigger than that. Like it can consume you, but the best way to dig yourself out is to remember that there's So much more going on, right? Yeah, I just really liked it. It came at the right time. It was very sweet. The ending was a little confusing, but I still enjoyed it. And that is House of Frank. Now to wrap things up, I'm not going to talk about the cowboy romances. The cowboy romances that I read, because I'm going to be covering them in detail in my next video. But yeah, I read a contemporary viral fave, if you can guess what that is. I read kind of a more classic historical romance. And then, of course, I read a crazy, stupid one that ended up being pretty good. So I'm not going to touch on those, but just know. At the end of this month, I was reading nothing but cowboy romances and I suffered, but not too bad. Not too bad. So for my final book, what did I just finish this morning? I didn't even tell you what happened to me before I started filming. I was wearing, God, this is such a tangent, but before I put this on, I was wearing a white shirt. And I remember thinking, God, I really like this shirt. I should buy another one because it's just the right fit. It's the right neckline. Really enjoy it. And it's not sheer. It's hard to find a good white shirt, you know? The fates heard me because, of course, I'm drinking my coffee, not using a straw, trying to save the world. You know, when sometimes you take a drink and then the ice, like, there's like this avalanche? Coffee all over my white shirt. So I was already traumatized because this book is traumatizing. But now I have a coffee stain on my white shirt. So that's how my morning went. Anyway, the book I was reading, the book that was traumatizing me even prior to my coffee spill, is We Used to Live Here. Ironically, this was recommended to me by one of my favorite romantic comedy authors. So a woman who brings me joy and laughter recommended this to me, and that does not sit well in my brain. We Used to Live Here is a psychological thriller / horror that actually scared me. I don't think it was the most incredibly written book, but it had jump scares. Like, in terms of the actual story, nothing to write home about, to be honest. But there were just elements of this book that freaked me out to the point where I was reading on my couch with my head, I was facing the window, but it's nighttime, right? And my husband was doing the dishes in the kitchen, and for a split second he moved, and so his outline moved in the reflection of the window as I'm reading a scary scene. I jumped off that couch. Like, I was on edge. Okay, I had to stop reading it before I went to sleep, okay? So props to the book for that. We're following a couple, Eve and Charlie. They are like house renovators. They like to flip houses. So they just bought this kind of dilapidated mansion thing in a secluded area in the Pacific Northwest. They've been there for like a couple days. Like, everything's still in boxes, you know. Charlie has run out to run some errands. She'll be back in a second. Eve is home alone with the dog. Who's at the door? A family. Husband, wife, and their 3 kids. And the husband is basically like, hey, I know this is really weird, but like, we used to live here. You see? More so, the husband grew up here. Could I show my family around the house? And Eve is immediately like, hell no. Like, this is really weird. You're showing up at night. I'm home alone. Where's your car? She was like, how did you guys get here? They seem to just have like appeared out of nowhere. But she's a super people pleaser, and she's basically like, let me call my girlfriend, wait inside, I'm gonna see what she feels about this. You know, once you let them in, what are you gonna do? So of course she's like, fine, fuck it, you know, you have 15 minutes, right? And as the story goes on, they just never leave. And again, this is a psychological thriller, so we have a lot of like things start to change, and we start to wonder if our memory is faulty, and do we have a reliable narrator? And there were just so many instances of like walking through a basement and seeing like a flashlight will flash and you could clearly see human eyes looking out from a cabinet, and then when you open the cabinet, nothing's there. There were so many instances of like doors being open when like you know you had just closed it. Like all of those little things that are just, ooh, I felt very, it was just a lot of jump scares, a lot of like, don't turn your back because when you turn back around, something bad's gonna be there. Yeah, I don't know. It just did the job. Like I was very disturbed. I don't love the ending. I'm kind of never satisfied by the ending of psychological thrillers, but did it thrill me? It did. Did it freak me the hell out and make me... The coffee spill was not because of my fear, but I honestly, my hand might have been shakier than usual. You know, I don't know. Yeah, if you're just looking for something to get that heart rate up, We Used to Live Here did it. And it's actually so funny because I was just in my hometown and we just drove past my old house just to see, because we heard from my neighbors that they cut down some of our trees. And so we were gonna just do a drive-by. But my friend and I were talking about that, like, would it be weird if we stopped and asked to like come see the house? And my answer is, yeah, it would be weird. Look at the outside, but don't come onto my property. Stay on the road, you know? So we respected my house, okay? Love it to death. Gave it a little, but I'm not doing any drop-ins to be like, can I give my friend a tour? No. I felt like even though it was a little heavy-handed, our main characters, the descriptions of her like people-pleasing and anxiety was unfortunately like dead on to me. So I was very much like, oh, Eve, everything you chose to do, even though like hindsight is 20/20. So me as the reader, I'm like, don't do it, Eve. I know if I was in her shoes, I would have done like 90% of what she did. So really got to work on that. Anyway, that's what I read in August. I've got a lot of really great books to look forward to. Obviously, these two. Thank you again to Book of the Month. You can use my code JACKET to get your first book for $5 and a hat. So I've got plenty of books to look forward to. I have, what are some other ones? The Arcane Academy. Oh, The Bewitching, The Possession of, the new Isabel Cañas book. I forget, The Possession of something. Basically, I've got some like gothic, creepy books coming up. So I'm very excited. September should be a really good month. And yeah, if I go MIA for a little bit, it's because I am trying my damn best to finish this Mortal Instruments video for you. So I will see you guys then. And then after that, I know I talk about it on my vlog channel, but I don't know how much I've mentioned that next month I will be heading to Ireland. But I also just booked tickets. I will be in Edinburgh over the like Halloween weekend or whatever that is. So I'm going to try my very best to organize meetups, definitely in Dublin. I'm still just like not 100% set on my schedule for Edinburgh. So I would also love to do some kind of meetup or like Halloween thing in Edinburgh as well. So if you want to be more up to date on those in terms of like meetup things, you have to check on my Instagram. It's a lot easier to just have like timely updates. I'll also try my best to post on YouTube as well, but just in case, if you want to like message me about it, if you have ideas of venues, where to even meet up, I don't know weather wise like what exactly to do. So yes, let me know if you are in the Dublin or the Edinburgh area, and very excited for everything that this year holds. So I'm gonna leave you here and let me know what you guys have been reading. Let me know your thoughts on my disappointments. But yeah, A Forgery of Fate, so good. I still haven't read Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim just because I don't want to be hurt. And I know that it's gonna really hurt my feelings. So, but yeah, anything else that you've been loving recently, let me know. Some autumnal books. It's the end of summer. Did I finish The Count of Monte Cristo? No, I'm on page, I think 400 out of 1,200 or something. Chiseling away. But yeah, so that summer goal, you know, there's always next summer, but I'm taking notes so that I remember everything that I've read. But yeah, just an update on that. Anyway, yes, I gotta go. But love to you always. Thank you so much for your recommendations, and see you for some cowboys and then for some shadow hunters. Okay. Bye.